Welcome to the special edition of the Thanksgiving Reboot Club. Okay, this is going to be a fun one, guys, because we're actually going to talk about what the bees eat. And not necessarily what we eat, but what we need. And the reason we're doing this for Thanksgiving is because this whole idea of being nourished at such a great level and being grateful and thankful, because of course that's where Thanksgiving comes from. Hey, my name's Rolinda. I'm a professional artist, but I am also the facilitator and creator of the Reboot Club. Welcome into a sneak little peek of lesson Thanksgiving. So, are you ready? Okay, so the three things that bees eat: royal jelly, honey, and pollen. Those are the three things that make up the diet. Of course, they have water as well. But let's talk about royal jelly. Royal jelly, are you familiar with that term? It's actually like a most amazing touted health remedy kind of thing. It's like you can kind of see it in that world when they harvest it. But for a bee, royal jelly is the very first thing they eat. Very cool. So what happens, a nurse bee actually secretes the royal jelly from its head into the little tiny cell where the baby lives. So it first starts out with an egg and it turns into a larva, and that larva actually gets royal jelly from the very beginning. It's the first food a bee will eat is royal jelly. Now this is kind of cool. A queen will continue to eat royal jelly her whole life. And they almost wonder if that's not what makes the queen's life longer. So a bee doesn't live that very long if it's a worker bee or a drone, but a queen bee can live a very long time. All right, royal jelly. And what's kind of fun, you can think about it, those nurse bees, it's almost like they're giving them like milk, like nursing. And I'm wondering if that's not why they're called nurse bees. Now again, I love bees. I study bees so that I can learn about the human condition. But I'm not a bee expert. So if there's a bee expert out there, please put in the comments exactly. Is a nurse bee called a nurse bee because they nurse? They give this milky white substance to the baby bees? I don't know. I know they take care of the baby bees, and that could be why they're called a nurse as well. 2, honey. Bees eat and love honey. The whole reason why they create and make honey is so that they can survive the winter. Interesting, right? It is incredible the way they make honey. So bees actually make honey by going out and collecting nectar from flowers, bringing it back to the hive, and then this is really gross, but inside the bee's stomach, there are enzymes. And what they do with that nectar is they regurgitate it into another bee and then another bee and another bee. And they keep passing the nectar around until it has enough enzymes in. And then they deposit it into, again, one of those little cells that they create. And it's honey. Very cool, right? The third thing is pollen. Now, this is very interesting. Bees are very interested in pollen. Pollen is their protein source. Honey is their carbohydrate. Pollen is their protein. So a bee will go out and actually collect pollen on their body. Their body's designed to collect pollen. They have hairs everywhere, even on their eyeballs. And those little hairs are actually split at the end. So when they fly, they create static electricity, which charges their little bodies, and the pollen is like Velcro to them. It just like sticks with static all over their body. And then it's really cool. On their front legs, they have this little thing called an antenna cleaner, and they will even like clean off the antenna, and then they use their legs and they shove it down onto their hind legs where it's called a pollen basket. It's this little kind of divot in their leg, and they make this ball. You've seen bees like with the little ball of pollen on their hind legs. It's really, really cool. Now, this is the thing about pollen. Work, honey, collecting nectar, right? Pollen, purpose. They're going out, and as they collect this pollen, they're actually, and collecting the nectar for the honey, they're actually pollinating our world. And 1/3 of our food source comes from that pollination. So the difference between that work and purpose. Honey created from the nectar, work, pollen. I now shift into the me lesson, or the you lesson. So it's kind of fun because in the Reboot Club, we have the be lesson and then we have the me lesson. So here we go for the me lesson. So I am going to kind of connect some dots and look at the bee world and then compare humans, right? So the royal jelly, I want to actually introduce the idea of what if it's kind of like our endorphins, right? Our endorphins are created in the pituitary gland. We can actually create more endorphins by doing specific activities. And those endorphins give us a gift. Do you know what that gift is? I didn't know this until I started thinking about this connection between the royal jelly that the bee makes from its head. How crazy is that? Or the endorphins that are made in our head. So endorphin, the Greek term, means morphine within. So within our body, we can create morphine, which is a painkiller. So apparently endorphins are actually more powerful than morphine. The reason they even started studying endorphins was they were trying to find another way to create a painkiller, a way to actually reduce pain. So this is interesting. Did you know that as you increase endorphins, you do certain activities, you increase those endorphins, it actually cuts out pain? Pretty interesting, right? So let me give you some of those activities. All right, you ready? That intense aerobic activity. They talk about the runner's high, right? So aerobic activity. Sex actually increases endorphins. Eating foods like chocolate, of course, increases endorphins. Laughing increases endorphins. And my guess, snuggling with babies increases endorphins. All of those activities that make you happy actually diminish pain. Fascinating, right? Because this whole idea of we are on our whole life, all we're trying to do is diminish pain. We're trying to get out of pain. Super fascinating. I heard a story over the weekend of a woman who has a disease process that creates pain in her whole body. And she's a young mom of triplets, and it's extremely debilitating. She has chosen to not use pain medication to dull her wits so that she can be present with her family. And so she has had to find ways to live with that pain naturally. And guess what she chooses? Endorphins. She does activities to increase her endorphins, and it was hilarious because she was talking about giving service, right? This idea of finding passion in purpose from pain. She talked about how there was a tornado, and she went and actually volunteered and helped go through all of the images, photographs, and all of these papers that were gathered up after the tornado to help connect those images with the people that were looking for them. And she lost herself in that activity, and what she discovered is she had zero pain while she was serving. Amazing. She also did talk about eating chocolate too, which I'm like, yes, I knew there was a reason why I love chocolate. Okay, let's talk about the next thing, co-creation. All right. Now think back to the bees. They go out, the worker bee goes out and collects that nectar, brings it back to the other bees within the hive. Most of the bees live in the hive. A hive generally consists of, a healthy hive, about 40,000 bees. We only see a small portion of them out in the world foraging. 40,000 bees in there. And what they're doing is they're sharing all of that nectar to get those enzymes into the nectar so that it creates honey. They're co-creating. One bee can't do it. It's a co-creation process. All the bees need to work together in order to make the honey. Is that not cool? It's very, very cool. All right. Ready for the last one? Is purpose. I keep dropping that word in. It's because I believe that actually when we harness our pain, we can actually find our passion and then find our purpose as we climb up that purpose ladder, using that pain to turn us on to our purpose through our passion. So the reason why purpose is so important and why we talk about it with the connection with the pollen is as the bee goes out to get the nectar and it's covered in pollen, it's designed, remember, it's designed to be covered in pollen. It's pollinating the world. It's feeding us. It has all of us are impacted by the bee being designed to pollinate the world. Now, this is kind of the fun part. I want to talk about what happens when a bee combines honey with pollen, and it's called bee bread. Isn't that cute? It's so adorable. So bees actually take the honey and take the pollen, they mix it together in their mouth, and they make pollen bread. It's awesome. It's a way for them to store that pollen in a complete nutritious food source. So all they have to do is eat a little pollen bread and they get the pollen, protein, and then they get the honey, carbohydrate, and they're sustained. Amazing, right? Now, going back to those baby bees, do you remember that the baby bee, the first food it gets is the royal jelly? The second food it gets is bee bread. Because think about it. This little larva is in there eating royal jelly, getting bigger, developing. And then at a certain point, the nurse bees actually pack and seal off the top of that little cell with bee bread. And that little baby bee eats its way out to become a nurse bee. Very cool, right? So this is my question. How are you combining your co-creation experience? How are you creating with others and combining your purpose into this amazing, incredible experience that will sustain you at the whole and increase your endorphins that decreases your pain? Pain, passion, purpose. There's your reboot lesson for today. All right, I'm sending you love. Go out, live your life, and don't forget to use one of the reboot tools: play, rest, work, or muse this week. All right, see ya.